All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is the AI in Bible translation panel. And we only have 30 minutes. It's going to be kind of a rapid, brief time. But what we're going to do today is a little bit of a panel. I have a few questions that I'm going to ask the group here, and just exploring a little bit about what's going on in AI in Bible translation. So just for starters, if each of you can introduce yourself, sort of what organization you're with and what your interest is in AI. So I'm Mark Finzel with Biblica. I oversee our innovation in Bible translation, and we are leveraging AI in how we do Bible translation and scripture distribution.
And I'm Michelle Bryant, and I work for Biblica, and Mark is my boss, so I have to behave myself. But my department is emerging technology translation, so we're actually utilizing the AI tools within Bible translation.
I'm Daniel Wilson, so founder, CEO of XRI Global, an AI company that is now a Gloo company. They acquired us. And the problem we solve is making sure that the translation organizations like Biblica, C Company, SIL, et cetera, have the data to train the models so that we have high quality translation. When we use AI, it needs to know these languages well. And the only way to teach AI language is with data. So we solve that problem. Yeah.
I'm Koos. I'm with the ETEN Innovation Lab. My focus at the lab is assisted translation technologies, so work closely with Daniel, Michelle, and others just to test and try out all these new and fancy things that pop up and see how useful they can be for the work that we do.
I'm Mathew, and I'm a colleague of Koos at the ETEN Innovation Lab. And my focus is also on translation technology, but more specifically in building tools that are AI-focused for improving the quality and the speed at which Bible translation happens.
All right, so first of all, let's lay some groundwork for maybe those who are newer to the space of AI in Bible translation. Tell us a little bit about what's going on related to AI in Bible translation. How are we leveraging AI? What are some of the tools being used to use AI in Bible translation? And any of you can answer these questions.
I'll start, and then I can give it to Joel. Many of you know that the translation process has different components, right? There are different parts of translation. It's not just drafting, right? There's quality checking, and there's community checking, consultant checking. There's a lot that goes into it, and if we're talking about oral Bible translation, there's internalization, right? Internalizing the text. So there's a lot of all of those. So when we're talking about AI and Bible translation, we're not just talking about the drafting of it, though we are certainly doing that, but we're looking at every single part of the value chain in a Bible translation project, and how can each part of the value chain actually be affected and improved by AI. And when you do that in aggregate, you get small accelerations in every single part that put together lead to a lot of acceleration. So there are tools and capabilities being developed every day for every part of that value chain. So.
And just to add to what Daniel is saying is when we look at it, we kind of at the lab, we've made a distinction between established projects. They have a process going, they have technology that they use. When we insert technology in that process, it would not be to ask them to change it, but to see how we can augment it with technology. And then there are opportunities for us when we start with a blank slate to really start in a way that is technology first, and that is kind of working with XRI to collect data or to use other methodologies to kind of build language models that can start to create draft and work for us. So it's really exciting because there's no cookie cutter solution. It's really per project that we try to utilize and use technology in different ways.
I'll add that there are a couple tools that from the lab we are focused on trying to build and use on the field to help implement AI. And one of them that I'm personally involved with is called Fluent. one of the needs that we're seeing is text and audio translations, even though have been done separately, there is always kind of a time that they come together. Audio translations need text, text translations need audio. So a tool that actually is able to go between these modalities more seamlessly and have AI that can understand those modalities from the beginning is a need for now that we are sensing. And another area for AI that is also coming up is for quality assurance, and there's more time spent for quality assurance than there is for drafting in a Bible translation project. And we want to support that with AI, and there are a few tools that we're using for that also.
And so for me, as these fine gentlemen are utilizing and seeking out, researching, and identifying those things that are really promising, that's when I'll get involved and I will grab those tools and begin to put together, our training plans, what projects are going to fit these specific tools, and then be able to integrate. And so, of course, a tool isn't successful by itself. So for us as a team and working with the field is understanding the field team's needs and actually crafting training. It all goes in. If we're going to be able to have them utilize these amazing tools, we have to spend some really good time listening to them, training them, and adapting that training based on where they are in the world and what the variables are that we're dealing with, even in their country infrastructure or community infrastructure and authority.
So what are some of the developments that are happening that you guys are most excited about? Obviously, we're at an AI conference looking at ways AI can help all across the missional world. So when it comes to Bible translation, what are you seeing that's kind of emerging or new or most impactful in terms of leveraging AI for Bible translation?
So I'll try to start. I remember it was, I think, Daniel, 2 or 3 Missional AIs ago, where Daniel called me aside and said, I have this cool thing. It's an agent. And I can have one agent learn the grammar, and I can have one agent learn the vocabulary, and maybe they can create sentences. And we realized, this can really work well. But in a way, it stalled because I don't think the supporting technology was there to really get it going. But if you ask me today, what I think is one of the most promising things is agentic AI. And I think if you just look at how it served coding kind of in various stages, where we're at a stage that it can autonomously now code, and seeing how we can use some of that in our process. Again, I have to qualify that by saying it's not going to take over the human, but there's some certain consistency things, especially if it can work autonomously, if it can work and understand the context in which we work, look at adjacent languages, starting to apply some grammar rules and spelling conventions, and do that in a way that doesn't rely on a prompt, but take responsibility of doing that in the back end of things. It's more than just speeding up things. It's just off the bat improving the quality and the efficiency of the way that we work. So if you ask me about one thing, we still need to figure it out and see exactly how it works. And it can actually work across platforms. So if you work in Paratext or Codex or in any of these applications, those things I think that's the one thing that really can push the boundaries in the next year or so.
In that same vein, I'm always thinking about data and ways that we can get the data in the remaining languages that we don't have. And some of the things we're working on, I'll announce tomorrow, and Pat announced on Monday, the language integration protocol and what that looks like to basically have AI learn like a child, right? That can reach out and ask, what does this mean, right? In a language it doesn't know, and then ambiently learn also just by people speaking in a room, right? Right now, as we're talking, so the frustrating thing to me is, I will pay translators to spend time in our data collection app to give us, thousands of sentences, and then they put down their phone, and in the next, 30 minutes, they say the exact number of sentences that I just paid them for, but they do it for free, right? And so all of these tokens are wasted every single day. How do we get more of them, right? And that's the frustrating thing for me. And it's like, that's solvable. I think that's solvable. And we'll share more tomorrow. But the other thing, going back to agentic AI, right now we're doing some really interesting things with autonomous, always-on agents. What's really interesting is we can actually set up a fleet of agents that can go out all over the internet and find where people are using their own mother tongue on the internet, if they read and write. And even converse with them, on Twitter, on Reddit or something, right? In a unique way that gets them to respond in a strategic way that gives us vocabulary we don't yet have in that language, right? And that can be always on, talking all the time, or going, Gates Foundation is pouring a ton of money into new data sets for African languages, for instance. Well, I don't watch all of that all the time to know when a new data set has been dropped and all that kind of stuff, but my agents can. My agents can be always looking, crawling, hugging face, looking all around, basically creating the map real time of all the language data that's available with the proper license that I can use to make sure I've got the best data for every language on the planet at all time. And so that's one way we're thinking about it.
So Daniel, could you unpack a little bit more for those who may be kind of new to the space? So data collection for low resource languages. And we talk a lot about the idea there's 7,000 plus languages in the world, but the big companies only care about a small number of them. And you've done some really interesting stuff to gather data in those. So can you just unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we figured out was we don't need, for instance, we don't need all the vocabulary for a language. We really need just a small amount of vocabulary. They don't talk about Motorola or Ford pickup trucks in the Bible, right? So I don't really need to collect that information. I don't need to collect those names. And so I just need to know the actual concepts that are in the Bible from the source language that I need to collect. And so we've created a unique way to get the perfect ideal data set so that we can train a model that's Bible focused and Bible domain, right? And so we have collected that. We've done something like 30, 40 languages at this point, and the model holds that we collect that specific data. And then we need it in a place where not only we can access it, but the whole community can access it as well, right? And so all of our data has been open source, since we've begun, but it needs a place to live because there's a lot of different projects like this going on with SAL and with C Company, with our company, with Biblica. And so that's why we have the Data Commons, which we announced on Monday. And the Data Commons is that single place where all the data, not just data that we're collecting for Bible translation, but ministries have decades of data, and it's all living in disparate silos. And that means our ecosystem's not getting the collective benefit of that data, and we can only accelerate as fast as we cooperate, right? And so if we can get all of that in one place, acceleration happens for everybody because we've got all of that data, and therefore the model's in one place. So keep your eyes open. We'll be announcing more about the Data Commons tomorrow, but keep your eyes open for that. So
Thank you. Joel, Michelle, any other exciting developments you want to touch on?
Yes, one thing I'll mention is the vision language models that are getting better. So this is specifically for sign languages. There's exciting work. So one of the needs in sign language Bible translation, which, by the way, there are by far most of the sign languages in the world do not have a Bible in them, and there's a lot of work left to be done in them. Right now, the American Bible, our American Sign Language is the one that does have a full Bible in it. So one of the needs in the more sensitive areas of the world where these sign languages are used is to have anonymization for the person who's actually signing it. And there are techniques in trying to apply this anonymization through multiple cameras. Now, those need training, these need infrastructure, and some of the remote areas where it's hard to access and there are sensitivity concerns, this is much more difficult to do. So there is vision language models that are getting better at, you might have already seen, creating movie scenes and just from prompts. the question is, can we use that to actually do the anonymization while still maintaining the fidelity, the quality that will be acceptable for the sign language community? And there is work that is happening, even commercial companies towards this end. But that's pretty exciting in this field right now.
So for us, from the field, so we're text translations, and I am just so excited to report it is actually accelerating the process. And that is very exciting to me. And also, when we meet with the field team, they're not afraid of AI at all. In fact, they're just very, very grateful that we're validating their existence and bringing them in to the global conversation and providing them and resourcing them with the tools. And in many cases, getting a Bible for the first time in their language. And so they are very, very excited to work with us. And so I think that's an amazing.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So those are some exciting things. There's obviously some challenges too. Can you talk about maybe a couple of challenges that we're trying to address with AI, or maybe that we haven't figured out how to address, and maybe some people in this room would have expertise that they could bring to our community? So yeah, what are some challenges that we're working on solving?
I have a lot of challenges. So all of my projects are in very highly sensitive areas, also some that were former communist nations. They have not had scripture. They don't have vocabulary, spiritual vocabulary. And so that kind of having dictionaries, like we're realizing when they're making a decision, this is historical for them. And re-identifying or resurrecting words. And so then we need to make sure that we are keeping track of those decisions and that this is a dictionary. You know, like the English language, we have like a separate product that's a dictionary. It's not my focus on Bible translation, but realizing that this is having a record of the decisions that are being made as we are translating the Bible is really becoming very important. And then, of course, other challenges, definitely security, and also making sure that the tools that we are engaged with in AI have security in mind for anonymization and usage or tracking or activities and things like that. And so those are just a few.
Just quickly, I think some of the last languages that need to be done are, in very difficult spots for security reasons, but also for infrastructure, right? And so using frontier technology in a place that doesn't have dependable internet or electricity is a challenge, right? So we've been experimenting with on-device, AI models that don't need internet, right? But there are some places where, you've got to have a generator and a Starlink in order to get work done if you're going to use AI, right? And that because so there are workarounds, there are solutions, but it's no power, no internet, and we still need to make progress, and that's a lot of the locations we need to work in. So it's fun innovation, but it requires a lot of innovation. So
so, something more kind of in the way that we work, and it's something that we're working closely with XRI, and see Mark Woodward is here as well from SAL. It's kind of a lot of the languages we still need to do is oral only or oral first languages. At the moment, we work from speech to text to speech, and we have some good workflows going there, and we're seeing really good results. I think the one kind of holy grail is how do we stay within the speech realm? How do we kind of make edits and all of that, not having to go back to text? That's the one challenge at the lab that we are looking at and hoping that we can maybe not find ultimate solutions for it, but start teasing out what the major issues are that we need to address. But that would, I think, significantly speed up some of the OBT projects that we're busy with.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. For this oral first languages, we find that the quality checking process is very challenging. So we have a lot of established methods for doing quality checking for text translations, but there are methods for doing it in, of course, in oral Bible translation too, but they are more manual, and there is not so much tooling support for that. And that's an area where we are actively looking for, and some of our partners, even within ETEN, are working towards those things. So, but that's a challenge currently in the space. Another challenge is for in sign language. Similarly, in sign language translations too, quality checking can be a challenge. So the whole realm of looking at text, audio, and then video changes the reality of how these tools need to be designed, how the modality that they work with, and the AI tools that they can benefit from. And as you go towards the video side of things, there's less and less of established tools. There's more and more of research that's ongoing, but that's where we're at.
Cool, thank you. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about translators themselves. And one of the things that we say all the time in Bible translation is that AI will never replace human translators. And we really believe in the importance of translators and their work in the process. And so there's a balance between leveraging AI, leveraging human translators, and also getting the translators to feel comfortable with AI, but also not to rely too heavily on it. There's a lot there to consider. So could some of you unpack a little bit of that? How do we kind of encourage translators to consider this technology, to use it, but not to rely too heavily on it?
So for me, it's always, when I think Biblica has expressed this over the centuries of people first. And so whenever we've identified a language and then we've curated the field teams, we spend a lot of time with the field teams, the human connection. So really I'm focused on connecting, equipping, and activating. And in every stage of training, whatever it is that we're training on, that's really kind of a model that I use. And so we are actually having them translate a book of the Bible. Introducing them to technology comes much later. Many of them are only using technology because we're asking them to. It's not their skill. It's not what they do for a living. We work with farmers. We work fisher. Whatever their jobs are in a region or a community. And so it's really important to spend good time in training and connection between us, within themselves. I mean, we're literally asking them to do, everything we're asking them to do is countercultural. Even the fact that they're working with other genders or they're working with other generations, the fact that I ask for individual feedback. Most of them don't. They defer to the elder in the room, for example. And so everything we're doing, so just that people connection. And once we build their own confidence, and also this is sacred text, like there's a lot of pressure. In addition to the fact that they're saying yes, and it could cost them their lives and definitely their community. And the fear of isolation. There's a lot going on there. And so it's very important for us to slow down. And if we do that very well and we build that trust and they see that we are serious about keeping them safe and that sort of thing, then introducing technology this is very simple. And it also, because of the order in which we're doing the training, we are in effect communicating it is not the most important thing. It is not the authority of your content, you are. And so if I can build their confidence in understanding you are the genius of your language, then that is the appropriate positioning and prioritization on how, and the expectation, even in as much as changing the name of their role to a post editor, which simply means you should expect to edit. You should expect to make a change. You are the ones informing. And so I think that so far has been very successful. And yes, it's been just a few years with them, but we are just seeing incredible results with that and incredible momentum by doing it that way.
And just to Okay, sorry. Just to add to what Michelle is saying is that I think one of the things we've seen is that giving translators the ability to discern is maybe the biggest thing you can give them. Because if you don't do that, they tend to just believe that this magic black box is producing something and that should just be right and we have to accept it. But if you give them the training and the ability to make a choice, that actually, it maybe takes a bit of time up front to develop that, but if you've done that well, it speeds up the process significantly. So investing in people, and as Michelle said, giving them the authority to make the decision, and they realizing that is really the best investment you can make in the team.
And related to that, what's interesting, at least we're not as close as these guys are to the act of translation, but the stories that we're hearing are interesting, that because it's an AI draft that they're editing instead of their uncle's draft or their grandpa's draft, there's a greater sense of agency and ability to edit and change, right? They feel much more comfortable editing a text produced by an AI than challenging what their uncle or their grandpa or pastor wrote, right? And so they feel a whole lot more like, oh, this is ridiculous, they cross that out, right? That was way wrong, right? They feel more comfortable doing that because it's an AI, and then you get higher quality as a result, because they feel that ability to do it. And also how they're using it, they'll ask for, 5 different drafts and compare it, like we do in Bible study. Somebody's got the NIV, someone's got the NAS, someone's got the ESV, and we're like, what does your version say? And that helps, bring color to that passage. They're using drafts that way. They're saying, well, let's try several of them, and I never would have thought of that, but that's the exact right word that we need right now, right? And so it's just interesting how they're choosing to use it.
Yeah, relatedly, I think the one meta point that I think the three of you touched on is it goes back to the process of how we would kind of introduce Bible translation on the field, and to make it very clear that the community is responsible for their translation. This is theirs. It's not somebody else giving them a job to do to translate the Bible. It is for their own church, their own community. And that sense of ownership brings with it responsibility, so that they don't think that a tool can suddenly replace them, because it's up to them to make sure that the translation is of high quality, because they're the speakers. We can support them with tools, resources, but it's up to them to actually take it through. So I think that's a meta point. It's not technical, but it's actually very important that the posture of technology is subservient there. And a minor detail of how this actually plays out as tool developers is coming to specifics on the UI. So when you're designing a user interface that shows suggestions for a user, for a translator, you kind of have hints in there to let them, kind of encourage them to edit it, or show that this is AI generated, we want you to accept it, or give us some indication that you read through this and that you like it or don't like it, or make some changes. Because if you make it look like, here's a full chapter for you, and you can click next and move to the next chapter very quickly, that kind of discourages them or incentivizes the wrong sorts of behavior. And not that they want to do that, but we want to intentionally be thinking of how a user would interact with a screen to make sure that the AI is indeed a suggestion and not try to override them.
Mark, and just the last thing, when Joe was speaking, I was thinking, I think we need to be very careful, because sometimes, and I've been in conversations where people would say, oh, the community isn't ready for the technology, or the community won't be able to use the technology or to use it efficiently. I think sometimes we position ourselves as gatekeepers on behalf of the communities, and our experience in the past is that we've never found a community that, if you introduce the technology responsibly, doesn't embrace it, because what they see is this is something that can help us to get the Bible in our language faster. So why not use it? And communities and related communities or kind of adjacent communities are the best advocates for technology, because the one sees, oh, this is helping project A, then project B wants to adapt some of that. So I think I've never seen a community not embracing it if it is introduced in a kind of a responsible and thoughtful way.
Yeah, that's really well said, and I think that's a good place to end. I mean, really, at the end of the day, the reason we're talking about all these things is that we don't want anyone to wait a day more than they have to get God's word in the language that matters most to them. And so that's why we're doing this. Thank you all for taking the time to answer these questions. That time went fast, but we're out of time now, so we have about a 15-minute break, and then we'll go to the next seminar. So thank you all for your time. Have a great day.